They didn't get visas, no scholarships, no job offers from Google or Meta. But the young black engineers that the world rejected built the very first national data center in Burkina Faso without Amazon Cloud, without California servers, without permission. They call it the Black Silicon Valley. Every line of code they write isn't just technology, it's freedom. And the one who stood behind them through it all, President Ibrahim Traoré. He didn't turn to Google. He didn't wait for the IMF. He turned to the youth, to the minds, to the future. This isn't just about data. It's a rebellion. If you believe Africa can write its own future, like, comment, and subscribe right now. This story will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about power and technology. On June 14, 2025, the government of Burkina Faso officially launched PAC Digital, a $150 million national tech overhaul. It includes 2 sovereign data centers, internet expansion to 500 remote villages, and a full digital system for public services from birth certificates and land deeds to healthcare, school enrollment, and taxes. And here's the kicker. No foreign servers, no uCloud, no European access. All data stays inside Burkina Faso, protected, encrypted, controlled by its own people. President Traoré called it a battle to reclaim the brain of the nation. But what the numbers don't show is how far he had to go and who he had to defy to make that dream real. Maine was once one of Burkina Faso's brightest tech graduates. He applied for an internship at Google. Perfect grades. Clean portfolio full of ideas. But the answer came back cold. Not eligible due to nationality. No feedback, no second chance, just a form letter. He cried, then sent one final message to his best friend. Maybe I have to leave my country just to be treated like a human. But then something unexpected happened. A call came in from the president's office. The person on the other end, Ibrahim Traoré himself. Traoré didn't promise a visa. He asked a question. Would you like to build something bigger than Google right here? At home, Ousmane said yes. Without hesitation, that moment marked the beginning of a quiet revolution. The president began gathering young engineers from all over. Those who studied in France, Morocco, Tunisia, Russia, those who once worked for Huawei, Meta, Orange, those who got passed over, ignored, or told they weren't global material. They all had one thing in common. They were underestimated because they were African. A 20-hectare lot on the outskirts of Ouagadougou was cleared. Not for a golf course, not for tourists, but for a national data hub built from the ground up. Ousmane was appointed lead architect. They named the project Tama Technology African de la Mémoire, a deutonomy technology of African memory and autonomy. It was more than a name. It was a mission. For the first 6 months, they worked in brutal heat. No air conditioning, solar power only insulation made from corn husks and sawdust. No EU consultants, no UN experts, no outside donors. Just code, sweat, and belief. Every keystroke was a statement. We don't need permission to innovate. Then came the pushback. Facebook sent a formal warning saying, Tama may threaten global data security standards. Google blocked API access from Burkina Faso. Microsoft suspended all software licenses linked to Tama. Amazon cut cloud access without notice. Western media launched coordinated headlines. Burkina Faso adopts China-style digital control. African blockchain raises concerns over privacy, funding, terrorism. President Traoré accused of turning tech into a political weapon. But Traoré didn't flinch. He issued a decree. From now on, all government data, health, education, finance, identity must be stored on national soil. No exceptions, no compromises. A European Union official called to ask for flexibility. Traoré answered, I don't negotiate over the memory of my people. The tension rose fast. The IMF said it would review its support for Burkina Faso's digital development. Software companies pulled out of contracts. The U-Trade delegation canceled talks. But instead of backing down, Ousmane and his team doubled down. They fully integrated Tama with the country's core systems, smart IDs, school records, medical histories, land ownership. Everything now encrypted, local, immutable. A child born in Burkina Faso would grow up with a secure digital identity not managed by Silicon Valley, but by their own nation. And no one, no cloud, no server, no tech giant could touch it. A senior official from the African Union toured the facility, stood in silence for a moment, then said, "I don't know if this will replace Google, but I do know it's rewriting the meaning of sovereignty." The most shocking part, it wasn't the code or the tech, it was the people behind it. They didn't graduate from Harvard. They never interned at Facebook. They weren't invited to Davos. But they built something no one else dared, a tech system that serves Africa, answers to Africa, and belongs to Africa. At a press conference, a Western journalist stood up and asked, "Mr. President, do you plan to compete with Google?" Traoré paused, looked straight into the camera, and answered calmly, "No, I want my people to exist online without needing Google's permission." That one sentence spread like wildfire across African social media. It wasn't a challenge. It was a declaration. Africa was waking up with Tama running stable. The next phase began. The government began uploading core national records, birth certificates, school transcripts, health records, land deeds, tax and financial history. With just a basic phone, citizens could now apply for an ID, pay school fees, register land, and get medical support. No paperwork, no waiting in lines, no bribes. The system couldn't be faked, couldn't be edited, couldn't be hacked because everything was recorded on a blockchain built by Burkinab engineers for Burkinab citizens. It wasn't just a tech upgrade, it was a full-blown cleanup. Digital independence turned into administrative transparency. And transparency gave birth to real democracy. Data democracy. Officials could no longer hide documents or tweak records. Corruption started to dry up not because of new laws, but because the people had visibility. Then came something even bolder: digital education for all. Burkina Faso's Ministry of Education launched a program to teach coding in public schools starting from grade 5. Rural students were given tablets locally made, connected to a closed learning network called AfriNet. No YouTube, no Facebook ads, just pure content coding, robotics, design, ethics. By the age of 10, some kids were already building chatbots and simple games. In 2025, a group of 9th graders from Kaya won a regional tech competition in Ghana. They built a voice-based learning app that helped blind students do math problems on an old Nokia phone. No one expected it. No one saw it coming, but they came anyway with code, not complaints. To support this rising generation, Traoré signed a decree turning 100 hectares in Dori into the future site of Sankari Tech Academy. Once a place plagued by conflict, Dori would now become a launchpad for a new African brain trust. The academy would train the next wave of African engineers experts in AI, satellites, clean energy, blockchain, and hardware. It would have dorms, labs, satellite ground stations, and 3D printing zones, a full ecosystem. And Traoré named it clearly the training ground for Africa's first digital liberation army. But while this was happening on the ground, the reaction abroad grew louder. Facebook and Instagram were banned from all public systems in Burkina Faso, including schools, hospitals, and government offices. No ads, no surveillance, no tracking pixels. In their place, Burkina Faso launched its own platform, AfriNet, a social network built in-house that allowed people to chat, share, study, and organize without being manipulated. No shady algorithms, no rage bait, just humans talking to humans. At first, AfriNet was mocked. "Cute little sandbox for a poor country," said one Western blogger. But 6 months later, it hit 5 million users, spreading into Mali, Niger, Guinea, and even African diaspora communities in Europe. Meanwhile, a small group of developers in Ouagadougou built their own search engine, Soma. It ran in native languages, used AI that consumed 10 times less energy, and respected privacy from day one. No ads, no tracking, no data sales. People said, Soma makes DuckDuckGo look greedy. That's when Google filed a formal complaint with the WTO, They accused Burkina Faso of violating digital trade rules. Traoré didn't respond directly. He made a single remark at the African Union. If protecting my people's data brings sanctions, then I accept those sanctions with pride. At a small rural school, a child typed their first program print, "Africa will not be coded by others." Somewhere far away, in a boardroom in San Francisco, an executive sat back and whispered, "What if we've underestimated them?" All along, standing inside the National Data Center in Ouagadougou, President Traoré made an announcement. No one saw coming. Our first satellite, Biniat 1, is now active. No NASA, no SpaceX, just a team of young African engineers, a ground station, and one unwavering belief that black minds could reach space without asking permission. This wasn't a military satellite. It wasn't built to spy. Its job was to serve the people by tracking weather, climate, crops, health data, and natural disasters. A French journalist asked, "Will the data be sent to Paris?" Traoré smiled. Number: From now on, our data orbits within our own skies with Sat-1 in place. Tama Burkina Faso's sovereign blockchain entered its second phase. Now it could sync with real-time satellite data crop conditions, rainfall, deforestation, population health. The system became more than infrastructure. It became a nervous system. The government began using satellite signals to guide smart farming, telling farmers when to plant, where to irrigate, and how to avoid drought losses. In just 2 harvests, yields doubled. Crop failure dropped by 38% in the Sea Hill region. Doctors in rural clinics received real-time alerts about disease outbreaks, nutrition gaps, and weather conditions that could affect treatment. At the same time, another invention shocked the region. And the ITAT electric vehicle fully designed and built in Burkina Faso. Its frame was made with local materials to resist dust and heat. Its battery charged in just 30 minutes with a 330-kilometer range. Even better, its GPS was synced to Biniat, letting drivers avoid floods, ambush zones, and unsafe roads. People began calling it the African Tesla without Elon Musk. A delivery company in Niger placed an order for 200 units. Ghana offered to co-develop the battery supply chain. When asked about competition, Traoré said, "We don't build cars to compete with Germany. We build them so our people can move without waiting for anyone's license." Then came the next bold move. Burkina Faso declined to sign a data-sharing deal with the European Union. EU officials called it a threat to international digital cooperation. Traoré's reply, "What kind of cooperation lets you watch my people without asking?" Shortly after, Burkina Faso invited 20 African nations to a tech summit. By the end of it, 12 countries signed the Non-Colonial Data Pact. It was Africa's first formal stand on digital sovereignty. The pact committed nations to reject foreign data storage without explicit consent, block exploitative cross-border data transfers, co-develop local infrastructure for encryption and hosting. Some called it Africa's own GDPR. Others called it a firewall against digital colonialism. Meanwhile, a tech alliance formed between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Togo. Their engineers worked together to expand Tama's blockchain network across borders secure, distributed, and independent. For the first time, African data was being stored, processed, and protected on African soil by African hands. No Amazon servers, no Google backdoors, no one watching. Back in the West, the panic started to set in. Analysts warned, "We're losing access to African data, and our AI systems can't train without it. No data, no modeling, no prediction, no control." A leaked memo from a major US tech firm read, "Burkina Faso is creating a data black hole. If this spreads, we're blind." Traoré went live on national TV. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't point fingers, he just said, "They're not afraid of lost revenue. They're afraid of losing informational control." But Africa has finally realized data is a form of colonization. And today, we start rewriting the contract. From now on, no one will collect African data without giving something back. No one will mine African mines like they mine African gold. No one will train AI on our people and sell it back to us as is marked technology. If Google is the gateway to the Western world, then Tama is the first gateway built by Africa for Africa. And this time, we hold the key. A red alert flashed on the Tama security dashboard. The engineers found a strange piece of code buried deep inside a software update sent from an anonymous foreign IP. At first glance, it looked harmless, just a ping test. But Usman's team dug deeper, and what they uncovered sent a chill through the room. It was malware, not the kind that crashes systems. This one was silent, designed to extract pieces of data, slowly, block by block, and send them to a server in California. Medical records, land titles, tax documents, even satellite data. If they hadn't caught it in time, millions of Burkinabe citizens would have been digitally stripped in their own country. Emergency protocol was triggered. Usman shut down all foreign-facing connections. The entire data center went into digital lockdown within 3 minutes. They traced the breach. The malicious code came from a third-party open-source library funded by a global cybersecurity foundation. The name of the company wasn't revealed, but in the tech world, everyone knew who funded it. This wasn't an accident, it was a probe. 3 days later, Traoré addressed the nation. No anger, no shouting, just a giant screen behind him showing the malware, its path, its purpose. Then he spoke. "We used to fear losing our gold. But now I see clearly our memory and intelligence are being hunted even harder. When a thief enters your house, he doesn't just want your belongings. He wants to know where you sleep, what you eat, and what you dream of. Then he sells your dreams back to you as a trap." The entire continent froze. This was the first time in African history that a head of state had publicly exposed a top-level cyber intrusion targeting African-built infrastructure. Within hours, his speech was translated into 12 languages. Over 30 million views in just 2 days. A wave began. Online hashtags surged. Protect African data. #UCloud in cities across Africa and the diaspora. Young developers started the Digital Wakanda movement. African programmers from Brazil, Canada, Jamaica, France all pledged to support Burkina Faso. They sent code, security patches, blockchain tools, and they didn't want money. They wanted something else, dignity. Google said nothing. Meta stayed quiet. Even the IMF didn't comment because the evidence was undeniable. But the real twist wasn't the hack. It was what Traoré did with it. He didn't close the system. He opened it wider. He made the Tama code open source and invited every African nation to join in building a continental digital shield. From a national blockchain, Tama became a pan-African firewall. No longer just Burkina Faso's code, now it belonged to the entire Black world. In a small village in northern Burkina Faso, a 9-year-old girl named Awa made her first video call on a tablet powered by solar and connected to Afrinet. At the end of class, she looked up and asked, "Teacher, can I build a satellite like Binisat?" The teacher smiled. "Not just one, my dear. You'll build satellites for all of Africa." Back at the National Data Center, Usman stood before a group of young engineers. The same man who was once denied a Google visa. His voice cracked as he said, "They once rejected my passport. Now they're writing reports about me in my own language." Then President Traoré stepped forward. He said just one sentence: "If you believe Black people can code their own future, don't stay silent." So let us ask you, what would it mean if an entire continent no longer needed permission to innovate? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel to spread the story of an Africa that no longer asks but builds.